So, I mean, I think that this is a good project. I don't think that these are bad projects. What I have a problem with is that if you're not doing this and you don't have the sticker on your laptop to say you're doing this, that's a very dangerous message that gets sent out. And that's the same, naughty badge comment I made to the folks that had the other project that I can still call a naughty badge project, because it's a false sense of security. And we've demonstrated time and time again, at least with the other project, the routing one, that just because somebody has the naughty badge doesn't mean that they're doing the right things, right? Now there's been attempts to fix that. I think there's something called an observatory now. I lost track. But I think the warning message here, and that's the thing that I object to really, is that there's this false sense of security that just because you see somebody with this naughty badge, everything's okay. And that's a dangerous message to send to people. I applaud the effort and the initiative to making the DNS safer. I think that that's important. And I welcome more initiatives by ICANN and other parties to educate and teach people how to continue to do this. But please don't focus on the naughty badge. Focus on the process behind it, because that's the important part.
Okay, yeah, so I agree and appreciate the contribution. So if we go to the website that they appointed, we have so much information. But again, as I say, once upon a time we started the manners. Most of us were the first ones to be able to subscribe to. Everybody was not for it. Kindness came in as a complement to manners when it comes to the DNS security. So we have those teething issues, and we appreciate this. Nishal, I really recommend if you can be able to join the mailing list so that this discussion does not end here. Thank you so much.
And thank you very much. So before we go for the tea time, there are two things. One is for the social, there will be buses leaving at 6 every 15 minutes. I think 3 buses, Ed? 5 buses. 3 buses, 5:40. Okay. 5:15. Sorry. And what was the next one? The other one? Oh, and tomorrow we have there's a new item on the agenda. There's a training on network automation. It's a training on Ansible. It goes the whole day. So if you would like to learn about Ansible and automation, you can join that tutorial. After this, enjoy your break, and I see you again, I think, in half an hour. Well, at 4:30. So see you later. Yeah.
Hello. Great. We are going to kick off session number 4, which is the last session of the day. We are going to talk about innovation in data centers, and also we are going to have peering updates from NAP and from INCS. So let me welcome Eckhard Zollner from Digital Parks. He's going to talk about innovation in the data center space. Thank you.
Thank you, Amresh, and welcome everybody after a long day. My name is Eckhard. Apologies, I still have a German accent. I've lived here many years. It somehow follows me, sticks to me, but if you need a translation, just ask your Samsung S24. I'm sure it can do it for you. And it occurred to me the other day, I think this part of Somerset West, we always used to call it Sauerkraut Hill, because there was quite a high density of German population here in Somerset West as well. So that's quite a while ago. Yeah, so today I want to talk a little bit about innovation in the data center technology, and what we've seen really over the last 15 years in the modern data center has been all around optimization, making things smaller, making things better, but not really, I would say, the introduction of new technologies. And it's now starting to take shape, take place. So I would just want to touch on that. So a couple of the elements that we're going to talk about is what drives the change, what is demanded on the infrastructure, what other consideration does a data center operator have to adhere to, and then the actual topic of the talk about the different ways of high-performance cooling. And after that, hopefully, some time for questions. So what's driving the change that we've seen from a data center environment is really the emergence of high-performance computing, new applications coming into the mainstream, such as artificial intelligence, but there are others. There's obviously gaming applications. There's applications that we're hosting or are going to be hosting in South Africa with regards to space exploration and terrestrial analysis of space data. And yeah, other high demand applications that are changing the landscape of the hardware that goes into a data center. ESG is a big topic for any data center operator. Data centers traditionally being perceived as high consumers of power and high consumers of scarce water resources. So quite a bit of pressure on ESG, also driving a lot of change and new thinking into the data center environment to do things differently. Obviously cost, always a consideration. The data center fabric itself is changing from pure hyperscale type core environments to more distributed combination of core and edge environments that introduces additional costs that we need to always keep as low as possible. So what's been happening on the infrastructure side? The CPUs that we are finding on the server chassis that we are asked to host really have had tremendous development. Some of these chips now pack up to 8 billion or more semiconductors, traditional silicon-based chipsets, 8 billion of them on a single chip. So the power consumption has really multiplied from figures below 100 watt, 100 watt. Now we're seeing 400, 700 watt chipsets due to the increasing power that they have, and that obviously generates additional heat that we have to dispose of in the data center environment. Overall, putting a few of these servers in a rack, you know, traditional data centers started out maybe with 3, 4, 5 kilowatts per rack. We've had implementations of up to 15, 20 kilowatts a rack. But we can already see that air cooling is going to reach its limitation in terms of what it's able to cool. So for us, it's becoming all about enhanced cooling requirements. Other considerations, in addition to the efficient way that data centers have to operate and continuously improve their efficiencies, the data center environment is very tightly regulated and very much bound in terms of having to adhere to very strict conformance deadline regulations, really. Some of you may know the tier certification system. Certainly have to maintain our tier rating that is regularly audited. So the introduction of new technologies always has to be well tested and well proven and still be relevant in the field. So what cooling technologies do we have currently available? I think we are all familiar with the air cooling that we currently see in the data centers. And over the years that has been optimized. What we have now is the cold aisle containment concept that really makes sure that the cold air stays where it's meant to be, that it doesn't mix with the hot air that's coming out the rear side of the servers, and that really cooling is applied only to those areas where it needs to be applied within a data center environment. And we are seeing that that type of cooling is reaching its limitations. We're looking at about 20 to 25 kilowatt a rack, where we're finding above that air cooling is just simply not efficient anymore. So what's come along is a number of forms of liquid cooling and a couple of different implementations that we have seen, and we are starting to see more and more of them. The heat exchangers that are mounted at the back of the rack, fairly easy, small retrofit that is bringing the source of the cooling closer to the actual equipment. But even that has some limitations and some cost considerations. So additional forms of liquid cooling that we've seen is really the direct-to-chip cooling, where water is directed to a heat transfer plate that is mounted above the chip on the server chassis. And then we also have immersion-based cooling. So I'll show you a couple of samples of that. First of all, the liquid cooling direct to chip. There you see it on a sub-assembly. It's essentially a traditional cold water, hot water circuit that reaches the chip on the board through a system of small rubber pipes. There you see a picture of it, actually, how it comes out the back of the chassis, and essentially once the chassis are all stacked together in a rack, it connects to the back of the rack, and on the back of the rack you then have your cold and hot water pipes running through the data center. This technology is quite efficient, but it's quite expensive as well. It requires very high water pressures to be able to circulate sufficient water flow right through the heat transfer plate on the chip. And the cooling water itself puts certain chemical reactions, degradations on the actual, more on the connector side. So it's a technology that requires lots of regular servicing and maintenance, where the different couplers are engaged onto the chassis. So, quite an intense technology to maintain. And obviously, for those of you that studied electronic engineering like myself, they always told us to keep the electrons and the H2O modules well apart. And the dangers, obviously, with leaking pipes that, it causes some fundamental disturbance in a data center environment. So the next innovation that happened afterwards is what we call immersion cooling. So in an immersion cooling model, what you really see, two different technologies. The one is a single-phase technology, the otherwise is called a two-phase technology. So the single-phase technology is a horizontal tank, as you see there, and the servers are inserted vertically into that tank, and the tank is filled with a very specialized, non-conductive, non-corrosive, non-harmful, biodegradable liquid with very good heat transfer properties. And that liquid essentially circulates throughout that tank to an external heat exchanger. So there's a low power pump that keeps the circulation of the liquid inside that tank going all the times. Some more pictures here. You see typical examples of these tanks. And in data center environments where you have to utilize liquid cooling because of high power densities, you would have a number of these horizontal racks sitting on the floor. Already you can see one of the cost savings would be that you don't need the raised floor anymore because you're not passing any air underneath the racks anymore, the servers. Basically, you have a row of these tanks standing in a section of the data center. Then I mentioned also the two-phase cooling. The two-phase cooling is very similar. It's a slightly different approach. The liquid is a liquid that has a relatively low boiling point. So in the two-phase immersion system, it's essentially a closed system. The coolant actually boils at about 50-something degrees, evaporates, and the evaporated liquid is passed through a number of condensation coils, and those condensation coils create the condensate again, and the liquid returns to the tank where it's circulated. So it's just another form of liquid cooling, but it's essentially a closed system, so it's a little bit more difficult to operate if you have to work on your servers or your networking equipment. You have to stop the system for a while, open the lids, as you see on this picture, work on the system and fire it up again. So what we've seen really is that the single-phase immersion cooling is a preferred form of cooling, and you already can get a huge number of different of these tanks, different sizes, different configurations, depending on the workload that have to be immersed for cooling. Now, these liquids are very effective. They require, though, a few minor adjustments, and the OEMs have by now embraced these adjustments as well. Your server boards no longer require the onboard fans. They are used for air cooling on the server boards themselves, and the connectors are aligned on the outwards facing edge so that it's easy to immerse the server vertically into the tank and work on the connections from the top. So some minor adjustments, but as you can see here, the large OEM vendors have already adopted it and offer immersion-ready servers, and more high-performance vendors, high-performance equipment are making this technology available. Here's just a quick overview on the different forms of cooling. So the different temperature bands essentially overlap, but what we are finding round about the midpoint of each of these temperature ranges, these different technologies really hit the limit of what cooling they can provide. Immersion cooling has already even run up to 200 kilowatt per rack, but it's still an emerging technology itself. So at the moment, the recommendation is up to 100 kilowatt per rack on immersion-based systems. Now here, just in a nutshell, what does it mean? What are the benefits, and why go through this? Essentially, what was found that just the server fans alone on a server can consume up to 20% of that server's power drain. So already by not having the fans on the board, we're saving 20% of our electricity bill. Over and above in the data center, we're finding about 30% of the costs of the data center, both on design and construction as well as operations. About 30% are spent on air cooling, so that is no longer required. The immersion-based systems, basically with a static tank and a low power pump, are able to bring a data center PoE right down to about 1.1 which is a really good PoE that is traditionally we're not able to achieve that in a data center environment. These liquids have a high dielectric strength, so very much non-conductive, up to 60 kilowatts, volts, higher than traditional mineral oils. I think for those of us who are electrical engineers and used to using mineral oils in transformer cooling and other applications, these special fluids are engineered for server cooling. They have higher dielectric and better dielectric characteristics. Biodegradable is very important, obviously. And they have a long operating life of 10 years in the tank and 25 years shelf life. And they're completely safe for human ingestion, even human touch. They are a little bit more viscous than water, by about 20% more viscosity than water. Yeah, very easy to work with, very, very convenient medium. About 1,600 times the thermal coefficient than traditional air cooling, so that's really where we get the high density of high performance compute cooling that we can achieve through this technology. So in a nutshell, where are we with this technology? It's been around for a few years, it's still relatively niche, but the predictions are that over the next couple of years, from the beginning to by 2030, this technology, in terms of the size of the market, will have grown by about 300%, so significant growth in the technology itself. And also because more and more high-performance workloads are emerging, I think it's definitely what we are seeing in the data center environment over the years. The average power consumption per rack across a data center is only on the increase. So we're seeing it's something that's an inevitable development in the years to come. We have a couple of large brands that have deployed and used this technology. So it's certainly well adopted, well trialed, well working, fully supported. So it's not something that that is new, that is an experiment. We see it in South Africa over the next few years making its entry into the data center industry overseas. All the large data center companies have already started to make provisions in the data center design for it. And certainly data centers in the future will have to respond to customer requirements in a section of a data center where the infrastructure for this type of cooling is required. And that's all for me. Amresh, if there's any questions, happy to field them.
Hi there, Ed from, well, somewhere, I don't know where today. Just to confirm, so with these, the fluid cooling solutions, you would still have some condenser or something outside, or probably like a traditional almost cooling tower that you would have in the water cooling outside the DC, I assume? Or does it use I assume that the two-stage cooling uses a gas to do that?
No, it's, we have a very basic heat exchanger, which is an array of coils and from forced air circulation through it. So the fluid is essentially pumped through the coils on an external device, and only in very extreme cases do they actually require forced air circulation through it as well. The liquid has a very high, very efficient temperature coefficient, so it reduces, it cools down very quickly, but if air circulation is needed, it's applied just through a normal fan application. Thank you.
Hi, this is Nishal, community hat, I guess. Thank you. This is really interesting. This is completely outside my area of expertise, so I'm sorry if I ask a stupid question. But I'm a visual person, so I like to know what this means for me if I go to the data center in the future. Do I need a swimming costume? Yeah, I apologize if that sounds dumb. I mean, am I expecting to see tanks in data centers? Or what changes? I mean, you're a data center operator. Can you tell us in like maybe 3 minutes, I guess, what changes you think you're going to need to do to your data center to be prepared for this sort of stuff? I did listen to your slides. I heard you say that South Africa is coming down the line, but how many years do you think we are away? And what would a data center tech? How would they going to the data center to do something actually change? Can you walk us through that process quickly?
Yeah, maybe we'll give them a degree in plumbing first.
Okay.
Or we try and excite them in maintaining their own fish tanks. But essentially, no, you will see a separate section of the data center specifically designed for this type of cooling. So one of the new data center technologies that lends itself, for instance, very well for this are modular data centers. Because you can take a section of the data center and change the infrastructure, the way the infrastructure looks and feels inside that section. So essentially you'll have a part of the data center, could be a separate room, a separate section that doesn't have any raised flooring, that has a number of these horizontal tanks, and you'll have workstations next to those tanks. It's quite safe to put your hands in that fluid, but it leaves a little bit of a soapy residue if you do. So typically what the guys would do, they would be given a pair of silicone gloves, and if they have to take the server out for any work on the server themselves, they would use those gloves, they would work on the server, and they would put it back into the tank. But similar to the vertical rack, the horizontal deployment is essentially just a set of slides facing downwards as opposed to facing horizontally as you would work in that environment.
And then, if you could allow me to sneak one more in, obviously cost is a factor for everybody wanting to deploy in a data center, right? And you already said that the equipment is quite expensive, the fluid and I guess the supporting infrastructure for that. But at the same time, we're looking at not having to deal with the building raised floors, you're looking at lower cooling costs because, well, you know, the atmospheric cooling, I guess, is lower. How do you think that will balance out? Are we looking at a net increase in what it's going to cost to be in a data center, or are we looking at a net decrease?
I think we'll be looking at a decrease.
Okay.
Net decrease, yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Ewald from Link Solutions. Follow-up question that I was wanting to ask is, what effect does it have on the floor space, since it's now laid out horizontally instead of fitting a bunch of racks in vertically?
Yeah, it certainly has an impact on the floor space because you're not going as high as you used to go with a 47U rack. But at the same time, you're also able to put a multiple amount of workload into a single 47U rack. So a couple of the early stage high-performance immersion-cooled data centers that we see in the States, they put a whole 1 megawatt data center, which is a significant size data center already in our terms, in a room with 10 racks, or even less. You know, so I think you lose on the swings and gain on the roundabouts, essentially. That's my answer.
Okay, and as a follow-up question, will that affect the pricing on each rack, since you can fit less?
It'll be, I think, different pricing models, and that'll be more geared around the type of power consumption, the type of cooling that is required. Different liquids also are made for different cooling ranges that you have. So I think the pricing models will slightly change, but we do expect a net small reduction effect, essentially.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is Thomas from Flex Optics. Thank you for the presentation, very nice. I got a question about connectivity. How do you connect the gear when it's submerged? Is it all copper-based, or can you also do this with fiber optic?
Yeah, the connectors themselves don't change. The connectivity itself doesn't change. I think there are quite a few tests still ongoing, but remember, this liquid has got a higher viscosity than water, so it's not as prone in terms of getting in between connections, especially if we're talking about optical connections and things like that. But a huge amount of tests has already been successfully conducted. And if you look at the data sheets of these they're specially engineered fluids, there's a whole range of tests that these liquids have to undergo in terms of being conformed to their non-aggressiveness to the different connector materials that are being utilized. But the connectivity essentially, which is a optical or copper-to-copper or metal-to-metal connection, is not changed.
Okay, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Kat.
Any more questions?
Any more questions? No. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next are our peering updates, and we have Yolandi from NAP Africa.
Cool. Hi everyone, I'm Yolandi from NAP Africa, and as you can see, we will be doing the update on what is happening in the NAP Africa peering space. So 10 years of legendary peering, thanks to our community that has been supporting us connecting to NAP and exchanging traffic. We have grown to over 4.2 terabits of traffic, and over 640 members have now been connected at the exchange. Member ports by location. So of course you can imagine by connecting to an exchange, not everyone just takes one port, some takes like 10 for no reason. So as you can see, the allocation of the ports that we have throughout the different regions, as well as the sizes, we've seen a reduction in the 1 gig ports. However, we do see some enterprises still coming wanting to connect with copper, not realizing it's 2024. The 10 gigs, of course, has taken up quite a bit, so most of our members are using 10 gigs, but we are now seeing an increase of people wanting to go up to 100 gig, which is now fast becoming the new 10 gig, as we have 400 gig equipment available. So 400 gig is coming at some point. I think we first need to get rid of the 1 gig, so please upgrade your ports. IXPs by connected ASNs. So this list was extracted from the EuroIX website, where they look at the size of the IXPs based on the number of ASNs connected. Currently, NAP Africa is listed as the 5th largest, the Johannesburg location itself, where we have 557 unique ASNs connected. The next spot we need to take over is, of course, London, which has 839. So if you guys can find me another like 400 ASNs, that would be great, just for us to do that jump. So looking at South African peering, so what we've seen is if we have a look at the numbers from Afrinic, and I know that that's a sensitive topic today, but when we have a look at the ASNs from Afrinic over the past few years, it has been growing steadily. We actually saw an increase of, I think it was 300 ASNs from 2022 to 2023, new ASNs being allocated to South Africa, so networks getting their ASNs registered in South Africa. This year, I forgot to put it on the slide, but when looking at the amount or the total issued ASNs for South Africa last year this time, we were sitting at around 800 and something ASNs. Currently, AfriNIC is busy with a cleanup in their database, and when you have a look at the numbers now, it's gone down to 700 and I think it's 780. So with the cleanup, there has been a decline, but keeping in mind that there's more and more new networks coming up, getting their new ASNs and entering the peering space. From a NAB Africa perspective, we see a lot of smaller ISPs coming up wanting to enter the peering market, as well as the enterprises trying to understand how to run a network. So it's been fun times. So again, coming back to the ASN allocation, so this was taken at the end of last year. So in Africa itself, we have 2,410 ASNs allocated. And in the last year, we saw an increase of 7.7% of ASNs being allocated. So showing that, that there is still a growth in the number of ASNs being allocated. In the map itself, the darker spots is the ones with the with more ASNs allocated. So as you can see, South Africa is quite a dark spot, so meaning having most of the ASNs registered. We are followed by Angola, Kenya, Nigeria, and the corner one, Egypt. It's the corner one, guys. So yeah, it's still looking good, but we'll obviously keep an eye on what's happening with that for the coming year. Internet bandwidth growth. So we touched on this this week, where we were talking about what is happening in the internet space in Africa, and it's actually quite exciting to see that now that everyone else has gotten to their peak, we are getting to our new peak and we're actually overtaking them. So there seems to be a big push in terms of growing the internet traffic and the internet itself in Africa. So this is quite exciting to see that we are leading the international internet bandwidth growth, and it's expected to increase because of more and more of the focus coming to Africa, and with all the subsea cables landing and all these opportunities coming up for networks then to exchange traffic and actually peer with each other. So growth itself at NAP Africa, so we were established in 2012. We are one of the youngest IXPs, I would say. And back in 2014, we were like, 6 gigs. So that was quite an achievement, and since then it has grown phenomenally, and it's all thanks again to our networks that have supported us throughout the years, and been amazing to work with you all and learn and see how dangerous it is to have networks being run by people like you guys. But we're getting there, it's still growing, so that's good. So as mentioned, throughout the years, we saw a steadily growth. The point where we saw a big spike in the growth of traffic in the IXP is, of course, when COVID hit. And this is obviously due to people being restricted to be at home and being online. So everything changing, your education and all of that happening online, and having the freedom to actually stream something while you work. So more and more internet traffic has come through the exchange. We kind of expected to see it slow down a bit once everyone starts going back to work and everything goes back to normal, and work restricts us to stream Netflix and stuff. But it has actually stayed quite stable. So there was a little dip, but from there it stayed stable. And as you can see, from it took us 8 years to get to the first terabit of traffic. And from there, it's just grown significantly, like doubling through almost each year with the amount of traffic coming through. And that comes back to the growth of the internet in Africa itself. So it's quite exciting to see that this is happening all in Africa. So things that are happening at NAB, so what we are planning to do for the next few years. So one of the things that we do is Tech Days. I hope you guys know what Tech Days is. For those that don't, Tech Days is an initiative that we run on a monthly basis where we invite people from the community to talk about whatever topic you guys want to talk about, as long as it's technical. The idea around it is to share information and get to know what's happening globally, locally, whatever it may be, and any exciting projects that are happening. So we do encourage anyone that is interested to present to please submit something. I can't always think of something, and some of my topics are really boring. So if you guys have anything interesting that you would like to share or would like to present, we are more than willing to listen to it, because otherwise I need to present and I'm not very technical, so it's not going to be interesting. So we are looking to do a hybrid of this. Currently it's fully online. The reason for this is, of course, we have people at home that wants to join in, and we don't want to exclude them, but we do know that you guys like to party and have a drink with us, so we will be doing some in-person events as well. So again, please submit topics. Otherwise, it's going to get boring. So what's next for NAP Africa? So this year, the focus for us is really not to just maintain what we have, but actually grow on top of what we have already. So we are looking at improving some services, adding some value-add services. So we are really also open to hearing from you guys what you would like to see at NAP Africa, things that we can do differently or add to our offerings that would be useful to you guys. So please, if you have any suggestions, feel free to reach out to us or tell us tonight when we're very drunk and gonna forget anyway. You can tell us about it. But other plans that we have is, of course, we would like to get to the 5 terabits traffic peak, hopefully this year still. 680 ASNs. It sounds easy until you have an engineer on the team that wants to delete the dormant ASNs, and Ed that reminds us of it. So again, the challenge with the ASNs is, of course, a lot of networks are coming up, joining the exchange, but at the same time we have networks that are being consolidated or liquidated and needing to be removed from the exchange. So it's a love-hate relationship we have there with adding ASNs. And as I mentioned, if you guys can bring me 400 ASNs, that would be great. I'd like to get to 4th place, but this is obviously going to take some time. I think the projection is probably 4 years, maybe 2 years. Guys, you're not giving me confidence here, like. So we are working hard to see how we can get to the next level on the list that I showed from ERIX. And then regional member meetings. So we, in the past, we used to have a annual NAP Africa roundtable, and we noticed that we always have the same people coming, and we're getting tired of them. So we're changing it a bit. So what we want to do going forward is actually having regional meetings. So we will go to our regions, so Johannesburg, Durban, and Cape Town, and have a kind of meeting with you guys. And at these meetings, it's an opportunity for you guys to come through, have a chat with us, and give us ideas. Again, coming back to what you would like to see at NAP, some of the value-add services you would like to suggest to us. And if you have complaints, I mean, you can come. I'm not promising we're listening, but you can come tell us. No, but seriously, guys, please join these meetings. We would really like to hear from you guys. And yeah. And then, of course, Beers for Peers, guys. Tonight is Beers for Peers. I hope you guys are coming. I just saw the buses coming in. So if we can skip the Inks update and go straight to the buses, that would be great. No, I'm kidding. And that is it. So that is what is happening at NAP and the plans that we have. And yeah, as I mentioned, if you guys have any ideas or suggestions you would like to share with us, come meet us tonight or whenever you have a minute. And that's me.
You. I think we can keep the questions for BFPS. Nishal, are you next for INX?
The nice part about doing this last is that you get somebody else to come up here and do all the things like, we've got an increase in numbers and we've had all of this. So I'm not going to bore you with any of that. My name is Nishal, and for one of the few times, I'm going to say that I'm representing Inc. ZA for this meeting. If you're new somehow to South Africa or the South African peering context, if you've just fallen out the tree, Inc. ZA is the operator of the community-run internet exchanges in South Africa. And I'm the guy that is responsible for making sure that everything keeps running. Inks would be nothing without our community. We'd be nothing without our sponsors, and that's been new. That's been new for, well, most of you, I guess, for about 28 years now. So I think, everybody likes to clap hands and have other people. Really, you should be clapping yourselves on the back, because you're the ones that have helped to build and grow this peering community. And all the statistics that you've heard before this have been because you've enjoyed and know what it's like to peer for 28 years. So well done to all of you. You just make me look good. Our sponsors, all of these names that are on the screen here, you'll probably see some of them repeated on the big screen behind me as well. They're fantastic people that help us to continue to build and run community peering in this country. If you'd like to understand why community peering is so important, I'm very happy to explain this to you. There are a bunch of us that firmly believe that peering should be something that's owned and run by folks like you, the guys that run the networks, and shouldn't be run by other organizations. You can come find me later. Yes, at the BS for Peers, we'll be drinking the beer, and you can find out more. There are things that we've done. We're busy with paperwork updates. We've been doing research, and we've been doing training, and we've been doing regional growth. I don't want to spend time there because you all are more interested in beers than listening to me talk about a lot of the things that we've done. Somewhere along the line, we went and picked up OIX certification, and recently we're now Manners certified. That's that other Noddy badge that I was talking about earlier. Not because we think it makes us better at what we do, but because of one simple reason, and that's really to be able to show and tell you that we run the exchanges to the best possible standards that you could expect. So my recollection is we were the only OIX1 and Manners certified internet exchange in the continent until recently when Douala IX now has it. These are some of the things we did. We have a new exchange in Port Elizabeth. It didn't actually work so well, and as I'm a pretend engineer. I keep saying this. I'm actually an economist. I don't know why you people listen to me when I talk about BGP. But I love failures. I do. I love failures. And while I'm not calling the exchange in Nimbinks a failure, I'm telling you that it's taken off at a much slower rate than what we expected. And that's fantastic. It's because it gives me something to do. I have a problem to fix, right? And the simple problem we've identified is that while you guys here in fancy Cape Town, right, sitting on the beach in Sauerkraut, was it Sauerkraut? And whatever. And while we do this up in Joburg, and the snobs in Durban are busy doing this from their surfboards, our cousins in PE and lots of other parts of the country absolutely need the community building, the development that we were talking about, when was it? Yesterday, when we were saying we need more training. So what needs to happen to grow peering in other regions is not that we tell them put long-distance circuits into Johannesburg, Cape Town, Durban, or even Port Elizabeth or Quebec. It's to get those networks trained, educated, so that they can be peering in those satellite cities, so to develop more internet exchanges. I disagree completely with the ISOC guy who said, more is better. We want more exchanges because, Tanzania is better than SA because they apparently had one more than us or something like that. That's nonsense. It's a terrible metric to measure. But we're a big country. We're a geographically dispersed country. We need more peering and more internet exchanges in places that make sense to people to peer and to get them to understand why they need to do that. And all of that comes from training and education. So training and education is a big focus for us. It's what I'm going to be spending a lot of our time on for, what is this, the next 6, 7, 8 years? I don't know, at least until I stop walking. There are other things that we've done. You may have seen the press release that says Jinx is now all on dark fiber. That's no small accomplishment, by the way. Let me tell you that when we first started doing the multi-site stuff, I got a quote from some operator who, I don't want to mention their names, but they're in the room, for a 1 gig link between Isando and Parklands, two locations in Johannesburg, for 190,000 Rand a month. Now, that's not a lot of money to the US and the Europeans in the room, but that's a lot of money for us, right, for a 1 gig circuit. And this was 2015. That's an insane amount of money. Yeah, Angus, you should be shaking your head. Should I tell you who it was from? Today, I'm very happy to say that all of the locations that Inks has dark fiber between them. So we're renting, or we have dark fiber sponsored from the different operators, and we're lighting that up ourselves. So capacity, thing of the past. And I want you to think how fantastic that is, especially if you've grown up in this South African internet where who remembers, am I just too old, going into the data center to flip the dip switches on the Mux boards to go from 19.2 to 32 kilobits a second? Anyone else? Besides that old man, there we go, Nigel, thank you, Nigel, right? So to think that we've gone from selling 9.6 kilobits a second circuits to having a dispersed exchange that is fully dark fiber powered, that's fantastic. It's proof of everything that you heard from the speaker before me. We're growing, we're improving our infrastructure, and that's fantastic. Last year we did our first software project. We wrote something to help anonymize net flow. We made that open source. There's an article on it, so I'm not going to talk too much about that. And I'm not going to talk too much about the other stuff as well. It's written there. For those of you that engage with Inks, you know community is close to our heart. So we spend a lot of our time working with people like the ZANOG team. Some of you might know about the problems that have been happening in Sudan. One of the things that we did was we helped set up an emergency DR site for them, believe it or not, so that they could bring emergencies, online services to universities to provide services for university kids who are trying to get university transcripts and that so that they can get work. It's ZANOG work. We're just helping to grow a community because we think that peering is not just about getting the ASNs in South Africa connected. It's about getting the network connected, everybody, wherever you are. And that's why we invest in stuff like IXP Manager to help other exchanges grow. The other thing that matters and is really close to my heart, for those of you that have been in this industry for a while, will know that we place a great deal of emphasis on saying that Inks is community operated. And that matters to me. It matters because the decisions that get made, the things that we have to do, come from you. Maybe not you directly, but they come from people that you vote for. Right? People like yourself, regular Joes, who are willing to stand up, invest their time, and say, this is what it takes, or this is what we want to see you run. And the bonus is, you get to be my boss. Well, you get to try. This year, we have 4 people that are going to be running for election, so I'm going to ask each of them to come to the microphone. 2 of them are not here. I have a statement from one of them, which I'm going to read very quickly, and then the 2 that are in the room, if you can each line up at the mics to save us some time, I would appreciate that. The first candidate on, I guess, your left-hand side, his name is Moaz, and the statement that I have for Moaz is, as a consulting network engineer and internet service provider director, Moaz Taladia has a wide range of technical skills and experience. He is highly proficient in networking technologies, including routing, switching, wireless, and security protocols. He also has extensive experience with network design and architecture and is able to plan and implement complex networks. In addition to his technical skills, Moaz is known for his strong problem-solving abilities and ability to think strategically. He's able to analyze a client's needs and develop customized solutions that maximize efficiency and performance. He is also an excellent communicator, able to clearly explain technical concepts to both technical and non-technical stakeholders. And that's the gentleman on the left-hand side. So since he's closer to the microphone, I'm going to call William Stuckey, the cantankerous old man that we all know and love, to tell us in 2 minutes why you think, he thinks we should vote for him. And Taryn, if I could ask you to.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's William Stuckey. I have been a member of ISPA for a long time, but I had to stop that when I ceased being an ISP. Subsequently, ISPA has asked me to chair their domain name working group, which has got nothing at all to do with the Internet Exchange Points. And they made me an honorary fellow to facilitate that process. I have been on the board of INCS before, or the committee of INCS before. I have been an ISP, I have been a regulator, and I've done all sorts of other things. But why you should vote for me to be on the board of INCS is as follows. Firstly, I do understand the industry. I've been around quite a bit. I have helped set up exchange points. I've trained people in BGP, including in French. I have, and I think that we need to avoid the Afrinic type fuck up.
What's he saying?
I have experience in being a board member. Okay, I have been on the Tenet board. I'm currently, for 6 years, I'm currently on the SABIN board. SABIN is the Tenet equivalent for technical colleges. So I have experience in how to run boards, how to manage boards, and how to deal with it, think of the problems that they need to solve, which are not just technical. They are ethical, they are legal, and so I am aware of those, and I'm familiar with all those other issues as well. And anyway, I'm a hell of a good guy.
Thank you, William. Thank you very much. That's bravery, telling the guy who's potentially going to be my boss to shut up and sit down. If I could have Taryn come up for 2 minutes, please, and introduce herself and tell us why she thinks she's a good candidate to vote for.
Thanks, Nishal. So mine's short and sweet. With a passion and a specialization in tech marketing and digital infrastructure, I bring over 10 years of experience to the table. My expertise lies in fostering internet exchange ecosystems and communities in Africa, and I'm actively involved in community organizations such as ZANOG, ZANOG, and Peering DB. With this experience, I hope I can contribute to the INCS ZA team as a committee member. Thank you.
Thank you, Taryn. William, were you listening? If we could get the slides back up so I could get this over with and you can all go for beers. Where were we? So yeah, there's four positions that are open, also 4 candidates that are running. For those of you that are INCS members, you'll get the mail on Monday telling you how to vote. There's a URL. It's not difficult. You can do it from the comfort of your seat. Please vote for people that you think are most appropriate. I'm done almost, except to say that even though I'm no longer intimately working with the African Peering and Interconnection Forum, this has been a real driver for getting connectivity working, for getting peering working across the region, and the organizers have asked that I send you an invitation. This year the meeting is from the 20th to the 22nd of August in the Democratic Republic of Congo. It's in Kinshasa. No, it is not scary. Okay, and if you don't have to believe me, there was a white South African with me, that guy. He'll tell you that it wasn't that scary as well. We didn't get raped, we didn't get hijacked, we didn't get robbed, we didn't get shot at, and the chili is magnificent. So for those of you that like to help to work to improve the peering ecosystem, we'd love to see you to get connected in there. He says it's safer than Joburg. For those of you that are listening online, the guy in Durban doesn't get out his house, so I don't know how you can say that. I have one more message to say before I part. When my colleague Faith was up here, she was talking about the extensions that we've been making this year. And as you know, it's been our policy from the start to be data center agnostic. We love or hate, depending on relationship, all the data centers equally. Our goal is not to try to tell you to be in a particular data center. We don't really care where you put your infrastructure, honestly. We care that you make decisions that you want to make and that you're not beholden to any particular operator. So we try to operate that neutral fabric. Jinx is in 6 facilities now. I think the most recent one that we've extended to is Africa Data Center Samrand, and that was last year. This year we've announced that we will already be in NTT Joe 1. We've announced that we will be in Equinix as soon as those facilities are up and running. But I'm very pleased to tell you, for those of you that have been asking me at the event, that we've literally 5 minutes before the session started closed the agreement to say that we will also be at the open access data centers that are owned, run, collaborating with WIOC. So for those of you that are in OADC facilities, you'll be looking out for us. We'll be turning up there. More news to come from both the WIOC, AODC, and INCS teams in the future. We don't have time for questions, which is fantastic because I'm sure you're all sick of me, but we'll be at the social. If you want to ask anything or make suggestions, let me know. All right, have fun, folks. I'm going to hand you back to Amrish. Thanks, Amrish.
Thank you, Nishan. All right, this concludes the last session of the day, and a quick announcement. Those who signed up for their T-shirt, you can get it from Faith, who is just to the coffee spot over there. You need your tags for the social. Yeah, don't forget your tags, otherwise you will be stopped at the door. See you at the Beer for Peers. Thank you.